Shane, what's going on?
Hey, not much. Just in the office.
It looks like quite the office there behind you too.
Yeah. I got a lot of cool little artifacts and stuff I keep. This is the home office, so I work out of here a lot right now.
So today we have a very exciting video lined up. We're going to be talking about scaling your business. Now, you've done some incredible things. For the people who don't know you, you run excess management here in Edmonton. I guess where did you get started here though?
Yeah, so for me, I guess I'll start right at the beginning. I was born and raised northern Manitoba, so I was actually raised in a Mennonite community. So it's a lot different upbringing than most people have. There was no TV, no radio, nothing like that. My whole family only went up to grade 9, and that's even most of my extended family. So like my mom and dad, both grade 9 education. I went on to public school, and that was basically only I wanted to play football at the time. So I was the first one in my family to go past grade 9. I went to grade 12. After high school, we farmed kind of that entire time. And business was always something I was interested in. I would like do hunting and trapping and things like that. After high school, how I got out west, I guess, was I started coming out here to work in the winters, and then I would farm in the summer. And I met my wife out here, out in Edmonton. That's where we are now. We moved back to Manitoba, kept farming. Our first business venture was a gym. So we built and opened a gym, and we ran that for 5 years and farmed. So that was a very busy time for us. We did that. The way I got into real estate, we had quit farming and we were running just the gym. And I'm the type of person who, like, if I'm not growing, I get very like, I hate that feeling of not continually growing. So we had got the gym to a place where the business ran really well. And then I right away got kind of uncomfortable. We knew we didn't want to scale that business. The gym business really couldn't. And I had read an article in Forbes. It was called Mobile Home Park Millionaires. And it was on how all these big funds in the States were going around and buying up all these mobile home parks. And the article was really cool, and it made a lot of sense. There's a lot of benefits to mobile home parks. You just own the land. You don't own the actual property, the actual units. And then I guess it was just luck or fate. The one in our town went up for sale, and there was a mobile home park there. It went up for sale. It was for a price that at the time I thought was just ridiculous. Like, we were a pretty small community, and it was this huge price. And I got the numbers on it just to kind of, have fun with it, look at it. And as soon as I looked at it, it just made total sense. Back then, mobile home parks weren't quite as attractive as they are now. So the cap rates were a lot higher. So we were able to go in, we purchased that park, and then we kind of did, I guess, what you would do a single family. We kind of did a flip on the park. So we went in, we upgraded the roads, we got rid of, there was a bunch of like really, bad trailers and stuff in there. Got those out, we moved new ones in. We did a lot of renovations on existing trailers that were park owned, and then we would sell those off. There was a house on the property, we turned it into a duplex. So we got a lot of experience there in real estate, and that was kind of our first step into it. We bought a second park, I think a year later, at tax auction, and kind of there was a smaller park with lots of land, and kind of had the same model with that one. And then after that park got running smoothly, we kind of got to the same spot where we started looking at what to do next. We were in a town, it was a pretty small community, so we knew we weren't able to scale it there anymore. We had some connections out here in Edmonton, so we bought 2 small properties throughout the next year here in Edmonton, and then we kind of had a 5-year plan to move out here and start a business in real estate out here. This was pre-COVID. It was one of the last big conferences that was put on before the big restrictions came in. So this was when we just started hearing about COVID, and we went down to a business conference in the States. It's 10X Growth Conference. It's going on today, actually. It starts at noon today. But we went down there, and me and my wife, and, there was, the guy just was talking about how, if you're feeling like you're not growing to your full potential, he's like, you're not a tree. You can get up and move. You don't have roots, and that really spoke to us. And we went home and we sold the gym, sold our house, and luckily we did. The timing worked out perfect for us. The gym was called Fit 24/7. It had never been closed, even for like 1 minute. It had always been open to members. And the day we handed over the keys was the first week of the first 2 weeks to flatten the curve. So that the building was completely empty when we handed the keys over. So had we waited even, a couple of weeks, that sale would have never went through. And, we would be in a totally different spot. So anyway, we sold that, sold our house, sold the guy who bought our house ended up buying everything in it. He bought like our furniture, he wanted the food left, he just wanted everything. So we moved out here pretty light, which was nice. And started the plan was always to buy multifamily. So we started buying property, and then about 2 years ago, so we ran that for about a year. We got some little bit of scale, and then we rolled it into a limited partnership and started taking on investment, and that gets us to kind of the company we have today, which is we're an asset management company. We run a fund that buys property. So that was a long-winded answer, but
Do you mind sharing how much you have currently under management?
yeah, so inside of our excess company, we have 280 units, and we're about 47.5 million in assets. So yeah, our goal, we want to be by the end of within the next 18 months to 2 years, we'd like to be at about 100 million in assets, and then we'll start buying outside of. Right now, we're buying only in Edmonton. We own our own property management company as well. I think at about that 100 million in assets is where you get enough scale that it makes sense. You can allocate some resources to going outside the city and get some diversity there.
So you have the asset company and you have the property management company. Was that just the synergy that you wanted, or why did you start the property management?
Yeah, so we initially, with one of the small properties, we had used a property management company. I just found it's very hard. It's almost they almost work against each other if you have a third-party property management company. And it can work if you don't have scale. By all means, use third party, because it doesn't make sense for you to do it yourself. But if you're planning to grow it, a property management company's business model is to make money, and they can only make that money from fees and all these things. And asset management companies to make money for the investors. So if you have those two things kind of working against each other, so we built out the property management company to be like an add-on to the asset management company. I think we've done a lot of good stuff in that with that company. And I think there's a lot of like property management, because it is a very low margin business, and there's not a lot of innovation happens in there. So a lot of the people have just been there forever. The other thing that I think really caps the industry is like, if you just imagine when people have on-site managers, those managers are, if they're making 40 grand a year, there's no chance that person can move to 80 grand a year at that building. Doesn't matter how long he's there, because there just isn't enough money on the management fees. So you're constantly turning the workers over and stuff. So we run a little different model. We're remote. We run like a squad system. And I think we've done a lot of cool stuff, I think, with our company. We're a lot more tech-based than some of the bigger companies. We just rolled out in January. I think we're the first company that I've ever found to do it, a tenant incentive program to keep tenants in the building instead of like a incentive program to just get them in the building. So that's really cool, and it'll be massively beneficial for our tenants, and it helps us, keep turnover down and stuff. So yeah, it's been fun. You can kind of innovate on that side, coming at it not from a property management background, I think.
Yeah, once you've been in there too long, that kind of mindset sinks into you, and then you're stuck thinking that one way.
Yeah.
So I love how you came in with a different perspective from a couple different industries. That's fantastic. Yeah. Now, one of the things that obviously you had to do when you're scaling up this business is personal development. What kind of steps did you put in place in order to develop yourself personally?
Yep. Yeah. So I've always been a huge fan of this. For me, I guess because I didn't come from like I'm not a big educated, like I didn't go to college or that. I never put a lot of weight on that. I always kind of had to learn things myself. So it started when I was pretty young. Like I was a little bit shyer of a kid, and I read a book called How to Win Friends and Influence People. And that was probably what started it for me. So that was a book you could, I don't know if you've ever read it, but that book, you can read it and take what it says and apply it that day, and you would see how conversations would go and stuff. So that was kind of the start of it. Another book, and like he's been a big mentor of mine kind of forever, is obviously Grant Cardone, but his 10X rule, like I read it when I was pretty young as well. And at the time I had I remember I was farming at the time, and I had drawn up this plan on how I was going to own in the next 10 years. I wanted to own 10 units of rental, and that was kind of my goal. And then I read that book, and he explained how, he's like, if you just look at it like, hey, let's set the goal at 10 times what you wanted and then work your way back from that, how does that look? And so then I thought, well, if I set the goal at 100 units, I can't buy single units because I don't have enough time. So I have to buy multi-unit, and then you obviously keep changing the goalpost. So that book made a big difference. And I've always been a proponent of spending money on personal development. That'll be the best return you ever get. So, and every time I do it, it's hard to do. Like I had bought an online multifamily investing course, and I don't remember the price. It was a couple $1,000s, and we didn't have a lot of money at the time, and that was hard to spend. There was one little part in there that, it was maybe 30 seconds of the entire 2 or 3 day thing that it clicked for me and really changed our investment philosophy. And that, you can see the return on that every time we go down to conferences in the States, or we do a lot. We just went down as by far the biggest investment in personal development we ever did, but we went down and it's a program just on scaling your business, where the different breakpoints are and stuff. So yeah, I think it's huge, and I find people, to look up to and kind of follow their footsteps a little bit.
What are some of the people that you're currently following? I know you've mentioned Grant Cardone.
Yeah. So he's big. Actually, his business partner I probably take a lot more from right now is Brandon Dawson. So him and his wife run Cardone Ventures. We've done a couple of different programs with them. The cool thing about that is, like, Grant, we have met him and stuff, but it's hard to, he's so big now, and it's hard to, like, he doesn't have any want to meet me or whatever. Brandon is probably equally as successful, but because he just started Cardone Ventures a couple of years ago, you get, like, I've had like conversations about my business with him, and you can get that access still, which won't be around probably in even a year. So he's been a big one. Robert Martinez is cool to watch. He's in a similar industry in Texas. He doesn't do it as much now, but he did put out a lot of content on the actual operating of the properties when he first started. So he's a big one. That's Rockstar Real Estate, or Rockstar Capital. So those would be a couple of them on the, I guess, in the real estate side. Those would be the ones I get like enjoyment out of, like Brandon Turner. I'm sure like bigger part, like, he's fun, charismatic guy for sure. But yeah, those would be kind of the main ones right now.
That makes sense. Over the last 9 years that I've been investing, I've been a huge fan of the Bigger Pockets. If anybody doesn't know those, they're typically American now, unfortunately, but they have some absolutely wonderful information on there. They bring on a series of stars, I'm going to call them, people who have specialized in their certain market niche, and just talk about what they're doing in real estate, which is pretty awesome.
So. Yeah, and that's something for, that's, podcasts are free, and I think that's where you can get, the equivalent of a degree in any subject you want right now online for free, which 15 years ago you couldn't. Like even when I was a kid, we got our information from encyclopedias or like books. Like, you just had no access to what you have today. So we definitely live in a good time for wanting to learn stuff.
What's an encyclopedia?
Yeah, most people probably don't know.
Or yeah, most people don't have an encyclopedia or a dictionary anymore, because everything you need is online. So
yeah. And that's actually my first business I ever had. I got from I had read in an encyclopedia the clams would eat algae in ponds and stuff. And I used to go down to the river like every day when I was a kid, and I found this pot where there was a bunch of like clams, and I'm sure they weren't the right type or anything, but I would collect pails of them and then go try to sell them to farmers to put in their ponds to eat the algae. So we did that for a long time and sold a few, but don't know if they work, but that's where I got the idea.
we do need more people like that, by the way. I'm already, last year anyways, over my place in rural Alberta, there's a ton of algae. So
yeah,
I'm hoping there are more people who are creative like that out there.
Yeah.
So one of the big things that I see you doing here recently is actually building a brand, not just around excess management, but around yourself. What kind of steps are you taking in order to do that?
Yeah, I'm making an effort right now to do a little bit more on the personal branding side. there's things that I want to show that we do that it doesn't make a lot of sense to do on the company page. And I want that to be, you know, for me as well, but also for our employees to be able to put stuff on there. I think it's a little more relatable when it is a person, you know, talking about stuff. It's also more clear that it's me that's running that. I do run the excess one, you know, I get all the messages and stuff, but it's not really clear that it's me running that. On the personal side, I've taken so much from other people as far as like knowledge and stuff. You know, there's people doing it, but I do think there's a little bit of a void in real estate between like the really, really successful people start doing it and they're so big that it's hard to ever relate to those people. And then there's people that are kind of at the same level as everyone looking for that information. And so they want to, I think we're kind of in that in between where we have some scale. We're obviously going to grow a lot in the next 5 years. So we wanted to document that for people, you know, people can kind of follow along and watch us. I think from an investor standpoint, you know, we do syndicate money, we raise money for people to have access, kind of see what we're doing, have some idea of our philosophy, you know, what I think and what our investment thesis is. I think that helps for sure with investment. Like there's the odd company that does some stuff like this, but you know, a lot of the big real estate companies, you're not getting a lot of information. You don't know who they are. I think there's a big need and a big want for our generation or the generations below us. Like the biggest transfer of wealth in the history of the world is happening in the next 10 years. That's going down from a generation who could care less about social media to a generation who gets all their information from it. If those people have the opportunity to partner with or even just learn from, you know, from someone in the industry that's relatable, you know, younger, all that stuff, I think there's a big edge there opposed to some of these older companies who are used to doing things a certain way and aren't on that train yet. So I mean, you've seen it work with a lot of people, and it's kind of a way we can give back and help people out. And I enjoy doing it. On the podcast side, we're going to bring on some guests. You know, a lot of those people are just people I personally want to spend an hour with or whatever I learn from. So whether I think it'll benefit everyone, but it'll definitely benefit me as well. And so
That is definitely the advantage of having your own podcast, is you get to sit down and interview people and ask the questions that you want to ask. So
yeah,
100%, like what we're doing right now.
exactly.
Sounds cool. Now, one of the things that I think is very interesting is you've mentioned some mentors that you've had previously.
Yeah.
Who are you currently using as mentors, or are you still using mentors?
Yeah, I always do. I don't know, that changes a lot. You know, like it depends in what we're doing. Like I'm actually taking a course right now on it's like public speaking or building out your kind of your story. And I'm just starting that, but it's like Pat Quinn. So he's a guy that probably nobody's heard about. You know, him and Pete Vargas do this course. And so like, you know, for that portion of my life, learning that it for real estate, like I said, I like Graham. A lot of times now too, I look at like, you know, what actual companies, you look at what big companies are doing, maybe more than even a single person. One guy that I really like on Instagram as well for real estate that I don't know if everyone follows, but I think his name's Justin Spalding. He used to have a show, I think, like Ballin' with Spallin' or something, but he's really cool. He's got a couple thousand units in the States, a similar climate to us. There's always snow and stuff there. So, but he's always putting out really cool information as well. I'm in a business group in the city here that's, you know, there's about 15 guys. I look up to all those guys. They're all either CEOs or owners of the companies. And that's been extremely helpful to me. You know, they're all there to give advice. Some of them, you know, they run really big companies, and I also have a, you know, a business coach, and yeah, I'm all about the mentorship.
Would you advise someone who is just starting out to go get a business coach or mentor?
Yeah, I think if you have the model, and I think the tricky thing though, and I think what maybe people lose a little bit, to be aware that like if you're going to go get a coach, there's going to be someone that can help you get your very first deal and maybe your second deal. That same person won't get, if your goal is to get to 100, unless that coach has that, he's not the guy to get you there. So I think to be aware of that starting out. The other thing that I've found, and like increasingly I'm very, very, I guess, cognitive of this is where that advice is coming. If the person isn't in a spot you want to be, their advice might not be right. And I found that at every level. Even now, there'll be people who are, maybe slightly bigger than me that will give me advice, and I'll look at it and say, well, that you're not, he's giving me advice that someone who's 10 times as big as him, it wouldn't be giving me. So you have to, know that, because everybody has a limit. I couldn't teach someone how to scale a business to $10 billion today. I don't know. I'm not there. I'm not that guy. I can teach them how to get to where we are, or a little, and I think that's something where when you are looking for a coach, be aware of that. And the guy you're going to get today, they'll help you, get to where you want to be, but it may not be this. You have to keep looking outside, because I see people get trapped in that, where they're doing the same thing over and over and over. And it's, you're not getting ahead doing that. So yeah, but I do think if you can pay for it, like we've had some very, our first property, which actually, fingers crossed, sells it. The sale's supposed to go through today. I see a voicemail on my phone, so maybe it went through. But that property, everything that could have went wrong did. And if you had a coach, would it make a difference? Probably. There's lots of little things, but like yeah, I think it makes a big difference on the coach and what their motive is. If their motive is just selling you a course and they're not actually doing it, it's not maybe quite as good. So yeah, I guess that'd be my 2 cents on it.
Fair enough. And I know there are quite a few coaches who that is their entire business is just selling coaching programs, which is very unfortunate, versus actually helping people. So
yeah, so when we go down, like the one guy we do courses with in the States, like he always says, you should always ask, what's the biggest thing you've ever done? What's the most amount of money you've ever made on a transaction, and ask those questions. Those are easy questions to answer if someone doesn't, but if someone's putting on a big whatever and just making all their money from coaching, you want to make sure they've actually done the stuff too. So, and like I said, starting out, there is going to be people that can help you with that first deal. A very big high level coach probably won't help you. They don't have an interest in helping you buy a single house. Somebody else can. But then just, if the goal is to move out, don't keep doing the same thing over and over with this. You want to, I would say, kind of progress up the ladder with the success.
absolutely. That makes tons of sense. Picking a mentor for each stage that you're at makes tons of sense.
Yeah.
Sounds good. The last thing I did want to touch on here is finding a team. Obviously, when you're scaling up, you need to find somebody for each level of transaction. How did you find your team?
Yeah, so ours, it's been pretty organic. The one nice thing I think with our company from day one, because we did have a pretty aggressive goal, people coming in, if there's nothing, if I went out to hire someone, I said, look, with my initial plan, let's say when I was a kid, if I went out and said, hey, come join our company, and in 10 years, we're going to have 100 units, it would be very, very hard to get anybody to get people who have ambition or drive, or like big aspirations to want to join that company, because there isn't room inside that company for them to, there's not even room for me to get very big at that level. So we always knew, and everybody who's came on our team has bought into that idea that we are going to be, and we kind of said, oh, we're here in 2 years, we're here in 10 years. There's room for every type of person in our company, right? Like there's enough scale there that there's a lot of room to grow. So setting the goal first, I think, and having people actually buy in. If I just said, hey, I want 20,000 units in 3 months, nobody's going to believe that. We have, very realistic goals. We've hit every target so far, and I can show people like, look, here's how we get here. We're going to do this, and here's the different steps. That helps attract a high level of people, and it's people that want to grow. And we've had great luck with the people we've hired. Mason came on, he was day one. He did it kind of part-time because we only had the small bit.
I think we just lost connection here.
Oh, are you there? Okay.
Yeah.
It was frozen. Sorry. Yeah. So they want to be part of that. I mean, I always look at it like, who are you working with? Do you want to come work for our company? And it's fun. Everyone's full of energy, young, or are you going to go work for our competition who, like, you don't know the founders, you don't know you don't know the model, you know, you probably, it's kind of like more corporate thing. So I think you're attracting a little bit different people. And honestly, real estate, it's a fun business. It's sexy. It real estate's fun. I mean, there's nothing like it in the world as far as I'm concerned. It's the greatest thing you could do. And to do it at scale is fun. You're dealing with, you know, big properties. I never assumed we'd be buying what we're buying. You know, when I was younger or where I came from, you know, to buy the properties we buy, it's a lot of fun. So, and you meet a lot of cool people. In Edmonton, it's a pretty small town, like, you know. When I moved here from a small town, I thought it was a joke when people said that, but it really, everyone who's in our space buying the stuff, we know we would have an idea who they are, and you know, the brokers and the lenders, and so it's a really cool industry. I love it. So it hasn't been too hard to attract people. The social media stuff, because a lot of people aren't doing it, that is where we have a lot of people reach out to, and they'll be like, hey, if you're, you know, we're looking at getting into real estate, we love what you're doing, we don't have any job openings right now, so we're just telling them, you know, like, you know, we'll post when we do. But you get a lot of leads that way too, that if you weren't doing that, like, people wouldn't even know about us if we weren't on social media or didn't have a website, or, you know, so this way, besides people in the industry. So yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. Just before we wrap up here, is there any other advice that you would give to people who are looking to scale their business?
You know what, I think, and whether it's, I guess, whether it's real estate or it can be anything, but I think you have to have the right vehicle to do it. You know, you have to have the right vehicle. The mindset's a huge part of it. The work ethic, you know, you have to be willing to put in the work, whether, like, I don't buy in for a second that 4-hour work week and that kind of stuff. That doesn't exist, in my opinion. I mean, people can say they do, but if something's working and you're trying to scale up, why would you ever stop at the 4 hours? Like, it's stupid. So I think, you know, you have to be willing to put in that work, and that it's going to come at different times. You're going to work 80 hours one week and you might have less the next week, but I think that's a big thing. But make sure that what you're working at is scalable, because some businesses aren't. If you're doing, and we've found that with different businesses, you know, in the past, but you can work as hard as you want at something that's not scalable, and you're just working for, you may as well have a job at that point. You want something that's scalable, and if and have an exit in mind. What is the exit? If and you know, trades and things like that get into this a lot, where you can build a really great business, but what is it worth anything when you go to sell it? You know, so with enough scale, every business in the world is saleable. Your everything, your times earning, everything. With scale, you get a bigger valuation. The people buying you are more sophisticated. So I would say make sure it is scalable. You know, you can have a passion about something and want to do it, but that doesn't mean it's a job. It should be your career. Either you got to make sure that what you're doing, if you're passionate about it, but it has to be able to scale. And so you can look pretty easily at other companies and say, hey, is there, you know, real estate, if you're multifamily, Blackstone, BlackRock, you know, $17 trillion in assets. They're not small companies, you know, so you can scale those. And even the way we built our portfolio was that way, from, you know, as we bought those 2 8 units before we had our company, but as soon as we came and doing this full time, my thought was always, you have to buy assets pretty strategically. So we buy bigger assets. We could be 3 times the size if we just bought small 15-unit properties or whatever. They're very easy to buy, but who's going to buy that from us, or who wants that, or who sees value in that? And it's nobody. No big fund is going to come to us and buy 1,000 units in 10-unit buildings, because it's impossible to manage that. It's impossible to do anything with it. The people who are buying it from you are a different type of buyer. And so we just looked at it and said, hey, if we're going to scale it on this side, and maybe one day if we want to sell a portfolio, it has to be a portfolio of assets that someone big wants to own. And I think if you always start with the end in mind and work yourself back, that's a big thing. And then, yeah, be aware, like, the coaching and stuff's all big. There's every business, it doesn't matter really what industry, has different breakpoints. You know, in the beginning, you need to know what you're doing, and then it's who you hire, and then it's all the systems and stuff. Putting that in place is, you know, that's a big part of it. A lot of people don't systematize stuff, and then you get to a certain level, and then you find yourself going back down, and you'll keep hitting that same breakpoint over and over and over. And that I see a lot with people that have businesses, and it, you know, that's where maybe that coaching or something comes into play. It's getting past there. But
Yeah, putting those systems in place, not so much for even yourself to be doing them, but to make sure that things keep going so you can continue to scale.
Yeah.
It's absolutely wonderful advice. Thank you, sir. So, Shane, we'll get out of here. Where can people find out more about you?
Yeah, so right now the brand I'm putting out more content. It's Scaling Up with Shane. So you can find me at like Shane Unruh or Scaling Up with Shane. It's pretty much any social media will be on there. My company name, or if you want to check out the website, we actually just redid our website. It's excessassetmanagement.com. It shows kind of the properties, a little bit of what we do and the team. Excess Asset Management's also, it'll be on Instagram and stuff as well. So
Very cool. Very cool. Well, Shane, thank you very much.
hey, thanks for having me on.